Hello, welcome to Getting Started with Houdini. And first things first, I just want to tell you how to get Houdini. So you go to sideeffects.com website, press the get. It will ask you to register or log in with your already had credentials. Then you download Houdini, then you install it, then you double click. And upon first loading, it will ask you for a license. If you don't have a license, if you haven't bought any license, it's okay. Houdini is a free application for learning purposes with a bit of restrictions, but just to mess around, just to see how everything works, and everything will work. The limitations are only on exports, only on file, creating caches, creating renders. You get the point. So Apprentice is actually like an indefinite demo version of Houdini, and this is what we will be using to learn Houdini, because otherwise there is no point to buy application if you don't really know how to use it. It sounds like a waste of money for me. So yeah, let's give it a couple of seconds to load. Actually, this is my first load. I recently reinstalled the Windows OS, and I thought, you know what, it will be a great way to showcase how to first load Houdini. Okay, so I closed the windows. We don't need the windows that have been appearing. So we go to edit, go to preferences, general user, interface preferences, and first things first, I will be making the Playbar UI as a compact. So the Playbar UI is the thing on the bottom, and to me it takes more space than I would like it to take. So for now, we will not be using like chops and animations all that much. So compact will do the trick. But before it actually starts being compact, you have to restart Houdini. But we will not restart Houdini just yet. We will go and press on the shelf. By the way, on the top, this is all called shelf tools, because it has the tabs. They are sort of on their own shelf, as you can see here. So if we press the plus icon, go to shelves, and previously there was a thing that was called Game Dev Tools, and now it's called Side Effects Labs, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, we press the Side Effects Labs, and nothing really happens because we have to go to Update Toolset, click the button, and as you can see, it has like something saying local and production builds only. It doesn't really matter. We can use not just production builds, because here's the thing. It has a tool set that will help you along the way, and we probably will use this tool set at some point. So you can use the production build. You can use anything from the internet. It actually connects to the server and updates the thing. So you get the point. So I press the, let's stick to the production build. So I press the update button, give it a couple of seconds. It says installed successfully, and everything should be good. So I close Houdini, discard and quit. I restart Houdini, and we should have Side Effects Labs, and we should have the Playbar as in a compact version of the user interface. The console has done generating new icons, and these new icons, as you can see, they are here. So, nothing interesting here. With that out of the way, I think we can start learning Houdini, how to use the interface and everything that is needed to go forward with the learning experience. So let's get started. Okay, so now that we have our interface up and running, usually when people start learning Houdini, they just open the Houdini, look at all the things, they don't make sense, they close it immediately, or maybe they suffer for a minute or two and try to, use the workflows that they might learned elsewhere, like in Maya, 3ds Max, or I don't know, Modo, Cinema 4D. They look at this and think, well, I don't know, there's like a dozen buttons on the left, 100 buttons on the right, 1,000,000 buttons on the top. This makes no sense. Okay, so let's try to make sense out of everything. So first things first, I'm gonna say this right before we begin, okay? This is important. I will probably say a lot of information right now. We're gonna learn about things about the user interface, and if it feels intimidating, it's fine. You know, no pressure. You don't need to learn everything in one go. But if you feel like you want to learn things, it's okay to press the pause. It's okay to rewatch the video. There is no pressure. It's not a competition of how fast you will learn the interface. Okay, so if you're not familiar with how things are set up, it's fine. All right, old habits die hard, and I get it. The interface may be a bit too much for a lot of people, and let's just make sense out of interface, some hotkeys, and how the things work in Houdini. All right. Okay, at the top, we have the menu like you would expect. And on the right of that, we have the currently active desktop. Now, the desktop is a number of presets that have been created for you to maybe speed up some layouts of the interface. So what I'm saying is, if you go to games, as you can see, it divided the interface in a way that I personally like. If you go to modeling, something happens, like the top shelves, they don't really have much going on, and yada, yada, yada. So we go back to build, and now let's see how we can make our own desktop. Okay, so there are a couple of hotkeys, shortcuts, but let's just start with making everything with mouse clicks, which is not exactly fast, but it's fine. So, okay, so first things first, if you press Control B and you first click in somewhere and you press Control B, as you can see on the bottom left, I enabled the hotkeys so you don't feel lost. If you press Control B, it maximizes the screen that you are currently looking at, except for, of course, the shelf tool. So again, left click somewhere or even hover your mouse somewhere and press Control B, it will maximize the thing. So in case you like press something and you're not really sure what the hell is happening, probably you press Control B. All right, next up, we can and we should sometimes divide our working space into maybe more working spaces. Let me show you what I mean. So if you click this triangle sign, you can say, where is it? What is happening? You can press split plane left and right, or top and bottom. So what it's going to do is that if I collapse this thing, you can create new top and bottom division, as you can see, and you can create, a new division that is called left and right. And let's do the same thing on the bottom section. Okay, whoa, this went wrong, so I delete this. Uncollapse this thing and divide, where is it? Left and right. So what is happening? So if we now press Tab to create geometry, okay, as you can see on the left, we have our geometry node. And by the way, I'm holding down middle mouse button to navigate. You can zoom in and out by scrolling the middle mouse button, zoom in and out by holding down the right mouse button and moving left, right, or up and down. Nothing like super interesting there. So as you can see, they are doing kind of like different things. But when I double click into the geometry and I go inside the geometry, the parameters on the right, they change, and everything starts jumping around just because we did not link our interface elements. So how do we do that? Right click on the spin button and press 1. Right click on the spin button here and press 1 as well. So what this does is it links the top and the bottom left section of our parameter and network views into one thing. And if we do this, press here 2, and here press right click again, press 2. As you can see, they are now connected top to bottom, but they are not jumping around like crazy. Okay, and here it says last selected node, which is useful. We're gonna stick with that. Okay, so next up, how do we add objects in our, no, actually, forget that. I'm just gonna show you how to set up things so they are more useful to you than not. Okay, so here I'll just hold down Alt and press the right bracket. So after we divided our left part of the viewport into things, I'll go create new top type and say geometry spreadsheet. And this doesn't look like anything just now, and you're like, oh my god, not this again, I've seen that. People are using Houdini always look at those numbers and they don't make any sense. Just don't quit right now. Okay, don't quit right now. In fact, I'm gonna collapse this thing, right? What I'm gonna do now is I'm going to save current desktop as AA, press save. Now, whenever you feel lost, whenever you just move around things, you're not sure what is happening, you might break things and you're like, no, what's happening? I want to restore my viewport and such and such. So what you're going to do is you can press like build or press AA again, and it's going to be restored. Actually, reload current desktop, and now it will be restored. So if you're feeling lost and you don't know how to get out of the interface, you can always go back to here and press like build, games, grooming, or the desktop that we have just saved that we called AA. I called it AA just because it on the outmost top row of names, because you know nothing comes first than two first letters in a row. Okay, finally, let's go back to build, and again reloads current desktop. All right, now we are in the default view. If I select the geometry, you can see like on the top we have a lot of things that don't make much sense, and if we jump inside, there is nothing. So you're like, okay, how do I add things in the scene, right? So you left click on the top in the create shelf tool. As you can see, now I have a grid, and if I left click again, voila, we have a grid. Now it's not particularly interesting, but the very fact is what is happening is that we have now geometry, and we have another geometry node that it says grid object 1. Okay, so another way of doing adding our geometry would be holding down Control and left clicking the thing. But the difference that is going to do is that it will create new object in the center of our world. So if I hold down Control and left click the sphere, as you can see, sphere is now in the center of our world. Grid object slices it not exactly in the center, because as you can see, the translation says that it's 0.2 meters of Houdini metering system above the ground. So if we zero it out and press 0, as you can see, everything is perfect. And yeah, we sliced our geometry in two. Now here's the tricky part. This, you can think of this as just a container for the geometry. And despite the fact that it's a sphere object, if we double click or press I to go inside, by the way, to go outside, you can left click here, objects, or you can press enter to dive inside again. Then you can press U to go up a level. You go inside, or you want to go up a level, you press U. So that's a couple of hotkeys for you to learn. Again, right now we are in the object context. The object context, as the name suggests, it contains objects, usually, but sometimes it contains a lot more things. Effectively, it can contain everything. It can contain channels, it can contain materials, stage, shop, out, everything. So for now, we will just say that if you are accidentally went into the materials, you can always go back into the objects by just, I prefer not just left clicking, I just hold down and I unclick my left mouse button. So you basically hold down, drag, and then you release the left mouse button and you go back. It's a bit, less clicking, I saved one click. That's optimization right there. Anyway, you can move these things around freely. There is nothing really important about how they laid out. But if you are getting lost and you're doing some, like, if you zoom out and you accidentally are here and you're like, all right, I don't know where my things are. So you left click or just drag select something, then you press the H button and voila, you are being centered in our nodes. Now there is a thing. If we have like one node over here and two nodes over there, if you press H, as you can see, like I don't know, I don't like this layout, right? So if you select, what is it? Our grid. If you hold down spacebar, shift and H, it will just zoom out on our grid. Again, H will center on everything, and shift H, why I was holding spacebar, because it's usually I work in the viewport, but we will talk about viewport in 5 seconds. So H for everything, shift H just for selection. And if you want to automatically lay out all the things, you just press the L for layout, and then you press H to go back to home, and there you go. Everything is laid out perfectly. So you're like, okay, fine, whatever. What about the viewport? The viewport is, if you come from, let's say, Maya, right? Usually you hold down the Alt key and you navigate, but Alt key is not the preferred way of navigating in the viewport in Houdini. All right, you better be off holding down spacebar, because sometimes Alt does things you don't want them to do, but spacebar always works with cameras. As you might have imagined, holding down spacebar or just holding down spacebar and scrolling up and down will zoom in. Also scrolling while holding right mouse button, sometimes I do that, zooms in and out. Left mouse button drag, it rotates the camera around the selected thing. And middle mouse button drag, it just pans around the camera. And by the way, in the bottom left, it just indicates that I was holding down the space bar. So don't pay attention a lot to that thing. If you see this thing, it just means that I'm holding down the space bar. So there you go. If you accidentally, again, not sure where you are, you can always hold down spacebar H. Again, it will center in everything. But for example, if you have the sphere selected and you don't know where you are, again, if you hold down spacebar shift H, you will zoom in only on your sphere. Again, spacebar H, everything, spacebar shift H, only the sphere. Same thing here, H, shift H. Okay. Okay, next up. I want to stop and talk about the container of the sphere. So this might be a bit confusing, but it's not. After I will explain this thing. So if you drop in, I just again press the enter. And here we can see the sphere. It's actually the node that creates the sphere. But if we right click or tab, I prefer tab because it's a bit faster, and you start typing box, and actually you don't need to type anything because you can, I think it's some primitives. Yeah, you can go into primitive box, but this takes a bit more time than you would expect just to create a box. So just tab, box, enter, enter, there you go. So if you press the most right part of this node, which is called flag, it will display and render the box. Okay, so we have the sphere and we have the box. But if we go outside, we will only see the box, because despite the fact that it's now called sphere object 1, inside we have a box, right? You see what I'm getting at, right? So now it would be logical to rename it into the box. And we go back, and yeah, here we go. So you're like, okay, is there a way to display both sphere and the box at the same time? And the answer is yes. So I press tab, start typing merge, it's another node, and drop the merge node under both of our spheres and the box. So now we can connect left click into the merge, or just hold down left mouse button, drag and release here. It's my preferred method. And now if we enable the display render on the merge, there is not a lot of things happening because we cannot see the sphere. It's inside the box. So you're like, okay, maybe we can move the sphere away, right? And you can do it like that. If we go back to merge, as you can see now, we see the sphere and the box at the same time. Okay, usually it's not my preferred method. You can hold down the control middle mouse button, and it will go back to defaults on everything that we have created. Essentially what I'm trying to say is to transform a thing in a non-confusing way, in a more obvious way, it's a better solution to press. Again, I will select the sphere, press tab, start typing transform, and now instead of just, no, actually, let's see, if I just press enter, it will drop the transform node. I'll have to connect it, make the flag. It's not a lot of work, but it takes time, so that's super annoying. Instead, I will just press the tab, again, transform, shift enter, and now we have our thing connected. And by the way, if we just had a sphere, whoops, oh, my bad. If we have the sphere here, and we enable just the sphere, and we then transform, shift enter, as you can see, it will not just connect the transform, it will also make the transform node active. And this is for every single node. If the node is the last in the list of nodes of your select ones, doesn't have connections going down, it just means that if you shift enter another node of your choice, it will be automatically connected, and the display and render flag will be automatically set to the node that you have just entered. Okay, so now if we select the transform node and press enter, it will enable us to move our sphere around. And finally, I want to show you that we can now connect the transform into the merge. And somehow the interesting part, what's happening is that we now have two spheres, actually the box as well. And what I'm going to do is transform the box out of the way so it makes more sense. So as you can see, we now have two spheres. How does that even happen? Because essentially we had a sphere, then we transformed the sphere, but when we merge, we have the spheres. So there you go. That's the nodal system for you. Let's see what we can do actually. So if we squish the sphere, you can see both spheres start deforming. This is happening because actually the transform is a state of the sphere, but moved to the left and slightly upwards. By the way, you can always enable the wireframe preview of the things. It's called the templates, selectable template, so you can see everything else going on in the merge node. If I just enable merge node, you can see that, well, it does what it says. We see a merge node. But if we enable the template tag, but we go back to our transform, we can see what's happening even without selecting the thing. Also, there is the state of the way of showing things while you are in the node. So basically, let's go up one level and let's go into the grid object. As you can see, everything else, in our case, it's a sphere, gets a bit ghosted, and you can always hide everything else. Again, if we go back to our box, which is a sphere, which is super confusing. So let's just say some geometry, right? So, okay, we were talking about the transformation and the merge node. So essentially, if you don't want the initial sphere to appear, you have to delete this connection. Now, my favorite way of deleting connection, as you can see, I just left-clicked, press delete. Again, takes a bit of time. The faster way would be hold down the Y key, and it becomes scissors. And as you can see, we can create, scissor the node connections. It's super, like it takes maybe a bit of time, but if you like have been playing StarCraft or whatever, it just it means that you have a lot of focus in your right arm, and it will be super handy, super fast. Not a lot of problem doing that. So what I'm trying to say is that sphere was transformed to the left, but initial state of the sphere, if we merge it together, will be displayed in the merge as well. So there you go. This is how nodal things work. Okay, we will stop on it a bit later. Right now, we're mostly talking about how to interface and whatnot in Houdini. So let's talk about that a bit more. Now, finally, about these couple of hundred buttons on the right. What do they do? Now, first, I will create a camera, because we are creating a beautiful scene. So I will hold down the left mouse button control to create a camera from the view that we were already viewing from. So if I hold down the spacebar and start rotating, you can see that the camera remains in the position that it has been created. You're like, okay, I want to go back to our camera. You click this drop down that says perspective, and you select. I'm sorry, a bit on the right. No camera, you select the camera one, and we're back to our camera one. Now, if you want to move the viewport with the camera, click the lock button, and then, as you can see, this letterboxing effect that is happening, it will move with our transformation within the viewport. And if I unlock our viewport, as you can see, the camera, well, it moved a bit closer to our scene, and we're not controlling the camera anymore. Again, pay attention if you lock the camera or unlock the camera, because otherwise you might mess up your camera position. Okay, let's say this camera position is fine, right? I unlock it, I change our position, and let's say this is the perfect framing for our, I don't know, Lord of the Rings 7, Rats and Snakes. Now I create another camera, control left click, as previously mentioned, and let's give it a dramatic lens. sort of like everything will be over the top. The focal length will be smaller, so there will be a lot of distortion. Now again, I'll hold down, left click the lock button, zoom in a little bit. Let's say there will be grandchildren of Frodo Baggins, I don't know, destroying castles, something. And now, if I want to see how my things work in camera 1, I just go back to camera 1. This is camera 2. This is camera 1. If you deselect everything so it doesn't, go in our way. As you can see, we now have a couple of cameras, and this is going well, right? Finally, we can add a little bit of lighting. So for lighting, I'd say, let's say just skylight. So you can just left click the skylight. It will create the sunlight, which you can enable or disable, and the skylight, which you can be, again, enabling or disabling. I'm not sure what's going on. Everything is exploding. Okay. If I disable this, you can see that our background is still kind of darkish, bluish, like almost the sky. So if you don't like this, left click in your viewport, then press the D key on your keyboard. And as you can see, we went into the display options world. There's a lot of things you can do, like make the points appear bigger, or make the edges appear bigger, or change the anti-aliasing samples depending on the, power of your GPU. But in our case, I just want to go to backgrounds, and you can select the color scheme from light to dark to gray. Honestly, I usually don't see a thing in the gray, so I stay somewhere between the lights and the dark. Dark works well for points, for particles, for simulations. Light is okay. So you can change it here, no problem. You just can, again, close it. If you forgot, this is the D key. First left click in the viewport, then you press the D key, and there you go. Okay, probably you're thinking, well, isn't dropping the transform node a bit too much just to change the sphere, right? So let's go back to our sphere here, and let's make it a polygon. And it will create a triangulated representation of a sphere. Let's give it a bit more frequency so it doesn't look like junk. Now, if I press enter, usually I'm pressing enter because it brings us back to the handles. Now, if I press E key, you want to select, it will scale the thing, right? So if you select our sphere and press the T, E, or anything like that, whoops, my bad. If you press S key, let's spacebar Shift H to bring up back the viewport center. If you press the S key and you select our sphere and press enter, it will select our sphere. And then if you press T, you will start transforming the thing. Or you press R, you start rotating, which is, shown by our wireframe. And if you press E, you can see that we can now scale, squash, scale, anything you want. So this looks like a peel or M&Ms or something like that. View. All right. Again, T for transforming, E for scaling, and R for rotation. So that's kind of the couple of another hotkeys for you to remember, which is not confusing at all, right? So you just remember that R is rotation, T is transformation, and E for scaling, which is like E scale, I don't know. It's just on the left of R and T keys on your keyboard, so maybe it will be easier to remember that way. All right, but as you can see, it made the edit node. It's not a transform node, it's an edit mode. Selections. Now we can select things like that, which is fine. You can press 2 key to select points. You can press 3 key to select edges. You can press 4 key, or key 4, semantics, if you want to select faces. Now, if you want to select things that are connected, like 3D connected geometry, as you can see, this thing enabled itself, and you just left click and everything is connected. So that's useful. What else? I will delete the edit node. I will go back to our objects. I'm looking for things that we might have forgotten accidentally. Just the getting started things. Now, I think, let's say, if you want to see everything in wireframe, you press the W key. If you don't want to see the wireframe, I mean topology of the things in viewport, you press Shift W. It will disable the topology, and you can actually change these states here. Wireframe, bounding box, wireframe, flat shaded, wired, and smooth shaded. So yeah, Shift W will, and W will basically, sorry, will basically change those viewing ways, viewing states. Okay, finally, let's go back to our sphere and disable this thing because it's a bit confusing. So finally, I want to talk about a bit the shading. Okay, so let's go back to our camera, and as you can see, we have the headlights, we have the flat lights, we have sort of good lights, and the kind of high quality lighting. It doesn't show that much in the viewport, but it's okay. So you change the quality of shading using these buttons. Okay. By the way, if you right click, you can change what is happening and the level of detail of the switch of lighting quality in our viewport. Final thing, I will enable the lights. I will enable, okay, sunlight was enabled already. This is fine. Okay, what else? Now, it's the final thing. I think we can go and render our things. So you can first make the preview render. You go to render view, press the render button. It will, in fact, in the out context, it will create the mantra IPR for us. You can, of course, create your own mantra node for rendering. Again, this is just a node, and if you select this, it will show you different options. I actually explained this in the rendering workshop, so I think I will have a link below in the description of learning how to render things. But now we're just, getting started with the interface and learning our ways around Houdini. Okay, so I'll just stop the rendering. And finally, we can press the render to end play. And another window will appear. And cancel. And there you go. This is our first render. Honestly, it looks terrible, but this is fine. This is what we were. This is what we were gearing towards. Am I right? So if we change to camera 2, in the our out section, we can write here that we want to focus on what's happening. Okay, everything for some reason hanged for a second, and now we see the camera 2. In the render view, we can go back to re-rendering the preview, and we will see that actually I want to see the camera 2 here. I will restart the render and give it a couple of seconds, and there you go. Now it looks kind of better. It's still garbage, but it's fine. This is what we were creating. This is art, okay? Anyway, there you go. If you press L again, it will lay out things for you, geometry, cameras, lighting, all the good stuff. What else? I think there is a couple of other things I wanted to show you. If we go back into our geometry, if we re-enable our merge, I will center everything. Get back our everything else thing just to ghosting mode. Okay, so if we lay out here as well, you can see everything looks kind of fine. You can change the color of your nodes. For example, if you want to make all your merged nodes into green, you can again press the C button or this color palette and make it green. This way, if you're zoomed out and you see the green, you can actually like, oh, okay, the green is our merge. So if something is merged, it's in the green, I get it. Or I don't know, maybe you like your boxes red or your spheres blue, because why not? So if you zoomed out, you just see the colors and you're like, oh, okay, this is the box, I should select the box. I want to select the sphere, I select the sphere. Merge is a merge. You get the point. Next up, somewhere over there, you can also select the nodes, make a comment for someone that is going to view your stuff. This is merge. You should learn this, I don't know, diligently. I'm not sure if I'm writing this word, but basically it's kind of like the lame version of Book of 5 Rings. Am I naming this? Musashi Miyamoto, I think, wrote the book, and every single chapter he ended with like, you should study this hard, something like that. Anyway, you can, where is it? I'm not sure. I'm seeing it. Yeah. You can also change how it looks. So a sphere can look like a sphere. A box could look like a flag. I don't know. Again, this is kind of useful because whenever you are creating a null, I'll just press the top, start writing null, shift enter. We already have the null, and the null is usually like the X. If you prefer not the X, but I don't know, this thing. X is actually working really well for me. So yeah, you rename it into out, and there you go. This is your basic setup. This is your basic how to use Houdini. If we go back to our AA layout, as you can see, everything kind of goes back to defaults. Get here camera 1, home, H, okay. So now if I drop into our grid objects, you can see I can still manipulate things on the right, and I can tweak our grid. I can increase the number of rows, increase the number of columns, all the good stuff, and it is not connected to each other, but gets selected the number of viewport. So that's useful. So there you go. Learn the user interface. Don't feel intimidated. If you are feeling lost, don't remember you can go to build. If you messed up the build, if you don't know what is happening, if you like, if you made some crazy things, you're lost, don't forget you can always do the reload current desktop, and everything goes back to defaults. So there you go. Because usually the worst part about learning new software is getting lost in the user interface, and it's a disaster. I get it. So don't think about it. You can always reload the things, and we will start creating simple-ish scene and geometry and layouts our scene in next videos. So yeah, like I said, don't feel intimidated. This is fine. If you don't learn all the hotkeys in one go, just it's okay, right? Don't feel like it's okay to be oblivious, right? It's not okay if you're oblivious a month after you learned all the things or started learning, but on your first day, it's fine. Don't feel the pressure. It's cool. Anyway, hopefully you liked the videos. Stay tuned for more. Don't forget to like the video if you liked what you have seen. If you want to learn more, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, because we have more to come on the topic of Houdini. And if you have ideas, suggestions, leave the comments below. I try to read all the comments and respond if needed. And have fun, learn new things, and see you next time.